Okay, so welcome to today's community call on zero waste for construction. We have a really great lineup of speakers here today, and I know that they are all very much looking forward to discussing this very important industry issue, and we can't wait to jump right in. My name is Celeste McMickle, and I am one of the directors with the TRUE program. I'm located in New York City, and I manage our projects in the Northeast, the Midwest, the Mid-Atlantic, and also Europe. So I am going to introduce you to your panelists shortly, but I did want to mention that you might be hearing a little bit from a couple of my colleagues in the chat and otherwise. We have Ronnie Fang and Susie Westrup are both here, and so you might see them monitoring the chat. If this is your first TRUE webinar, you know that we are always talking about working upstream. And when a lot of us first hear about zero waste, our first thought is always recycling. I know that this was my experience coming into the industry. And you are going to hear more about the panelists on this issue. But I do want you to think about this as you listen and learn today, to consider how we can incorporate issues like redesign, rethink, reduction, and reuse when it comes to the construction industry. I think you're going to hear about a lot of exciting opportunities to do this, and I think it's a great intention to go into the webinar with. So as far as our agenda, we have our welcome, and I'm going to start a poll here in just a moment. We have a couple of short updates from TRUE, and then we'll go right into the speakers. So with that said, I'm going to launch the poll. Here we go. I hope everyone is able to see that. Looks like some answers are coming in, which is great. We'll just give about 30 more seconds, 20 more seconds for people to answer. So we've got about 76 of participants, 80% have participated. Maybe we'll see if we can just get that number up a little bit higher. Looks like it's staying at just about 80%, so that's fine. We can just leave it there. Okay, so this is great. As you saw from the poll, we had some questions about whether or not this was your first TRUE webinar. We actually had most of our responses were yes, so welcome to all the new folks. We asked about current TRUE advisors, and most of you actually answered no, that you are not a TRUE advisor, so we might have some exciting updates for you in that regard. And then we had some interesting results on our industries as well, and it looks like it's kind of a mix. So, oh, here, I guess I can actually share this with all of you. So yeah, interesting mix with our industry participation. So feel free to put in the chat if you answered other. Definitely feel free to pop in what your other is. And sorry we didn't capture you. We'll try and do a better job with that next time. Okay. Great. So with that said, for all of you that are curious about the TRUE Advisor program, the TRUE Advisor is a wonderful opportunity to further your education surrounding zero waste and learn a little bit more about TRUE. We do have some great upcoming discounts available to participate in the TRUE program for lots of different types of professionals or students. We do have a general public back to school discount available for $50 off. That is live now. And then we also have two other more specific discounts that are available. One is for staff involved in K through 12 education. We have a 50% discount available. And then we also have a 50% discount available for students. So those are some great opportunities to take advantage of, and we hope you look into it. As far as TRUE advisors are concerned, this is a quick overview. We are a global program, both for our certification and also for everyone around the world that's participating in the TRUE advisor to further their education about TRUE and zero waste. You can see we're coming up on about 2,000 TRUE advisors, which is really exciting. We're in over 50 countries, and we've almost got every US state covered. So we'd love for you to get involved, and definitely feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Oops, Pardon me. Last thing before we turn it over to our panelist introductions is I just wanted to highlight a couple of upcoming events. We do have one next week that is focused on higher education for anyone interested in that industry sector. We do have a fall True Advisor study group coming up, so that would be a great opportunity for anyone that is a recent registrant for the True Advisor program. And then we have some conferences with the USGBC and the National Zero Waste Conference coming up later this fall. So definitely take a look at all of those. Okay, so now I'm going to launch into our speaker introductions. Our first speaker is going to be Holly Griffith. Holly is the program manager for True Certification with GBCI and is responsible for the development and management of the certification. Prior to her work with GBCI, Holly obtained her Master's of Science in Environmental Management and Policy at Lund University in Sweden. She is a solid waste management professional with experience in operations, education, and corporate consultancy in the field, and a passion for finding innovative, sustainable solutions to our most challenging materials management challenges. Our next speaker is going to be Denise Braun, who is a principal at All About Waste. Denise is both a lead and WELL AP. She is also a True Advisor, Fitwell Ambassador, and Envision SP. She brings over 17 years of experience in the sustainability field, working both in South America and the United States. She has worked in various capacities on over 150 lead certification projects, many achieved the highest level of certification. And Denise is also working on over a dozen WELL certification projects. She is responsible for the first true zero waste buildings in San Francisco, Sunnyvale, and Los Angeles. And she and her team have certified over 10 zero waste projects. They are also working on the first pilot true zero waste for construction sites. We're very excited to have Denise with us today. After that will be Kavita Karmarkar. She is the Assistant Sustainability Manager at Webcore and is part of the Sustainability Department at Webcore Builders. She works on all Webcore projects as an in-house sustainability expert. She is a lead AP and WELL AP and has 7 years of experience working in architecture and construction. She has worked on various green building rating systems, including LEED, WELL, Fitwell, CHPS, and now works on True Waste for construction. She is a member of the LEED Technical Committee and holds a Bachelor of Architecture from the University of Mumbai and a Master of Science in Sustainable Design from Thomas Jefferson University. Thank you for being here, Kavita. And our last speaker for today is Miranda Nowlen, the Senior Project Engineer for Webcore. Miranda is passionate about construction, sustainability, and the energy that is brought to the workplace every day. She is a member of Webcore's Green Team and a proponent of raising the bar in sustainability. Miranda has been on the Genesis Marina project, which we will hear about today, since July of 2020, with estimated project completion in August of 2023. We're very excited to hear from all of these speakers, and I am going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Holly. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Celeste, and hello all. It's fantastic to see so many folks as excited about this topic as we are. I'm particularly excited to hear from our project teams and other panelists, so I'll try to keep this fairly short, but I wanted to take a moment to introduce you to one of the most recent developments for True, which was just released this last quarter, the True for Construction Project's pilot guidance. We'll take some time in the next few minutes to talk through a few details, primarily why we created this adaptation, what it is, how it works, and where to go to learn more. With that, let's start with the why. To kick us off, a little context. As I'm sure most of you know, True was developed as a leadership standard to recognize individual facilities that have defined and achieved their zero waste goals, as well as to act as a roadmap for facilities that are reaching towards improving their zero waste practices. It's our goal to foster a more circular economy in which all resources are valued for their highest and best use. The rating system was formulated in a way that would make it possible to be applied to a wide range of industries and contexts. But in some instances, we find it's a little harder to apply directly to different project types. This was the case for events, which was why we created True for Events in 2020. And we found more recently it's true for construction as well. And we know that construction needs zero waste. Construction and demolition is one of the most wasteful industries. As of 2018, C&D waste accounted for 600 million tons of material generated in the US alone, with 145 million of those tons going to landfill. Within that 145 tons lies a significant opportunity to decrease waste and direct more material towards its highest and best use. And that is exactly what TRUE is designed to support. So we're finding we have a rating system designed to support projects in moving towards zero waste systems and an industry that needs that support. We hear this from our project teams as well. Over the last couple of years, we've had a small number of construction teams work to identify if there was a way they could make TRUE certification fit to their projects. You'll hear from some of them shortly about that journey. But as that interest increased, we were hearing the same thing from these teams. It was difficult to apply the standard TRUE rating system to these projects without some adaptation, particularly because TRUE is designed for existing facilities with ongoing operations, and construction projects are often new and term limited. So based on growing interest, an identified gap in the market, and to provide expanded benefit to project teams, GBCI decided to expand its offerings to a construction-specific facility focus. In spring of this year, we made it happen. GBCI launched a call for interest to participate in the TRUE for Construction Projects pilot, an adaptation of the existing TRUE rating system designed to certify new construction and major renovation projects. Through the pilot program, participating projects will be evaluating their zero waste practices using the pilot guidance that is based on the current TRUE version 1 rating system as the first iteration. By engaging with the pilot guidance, projects can ultimately earn TRUE certification for their actions and leadership and share feedback on how we can improve along the way. The pilot experience will greatly inform the further refinement of a TRUE adaptation for construction projects. So, now that we've dug into why the pilot is being undertaken, let's take one quick moment just to discuss what the pilot will look like. Here's a quick look. We're currently on step 2. Prior to our pilot release, we did a comprehensive review of the existing rating system, developing guidance utilizing initial stakeholder feedback, examining the work already done by those existing construction projects working to utilize TRUE, and through comprehensive internal review. After this, we developed an initial pilot guidance document and as an adaptation to the existing rating system. The next step is the one we're on now. So we're putting the guidance document to use by real projects. Our call for interest was the first step, and our second has been sharing the pilot guidance document for use in upcoming projects, both through an introductory webinar that was hosted last month and through this discussion today. We'll then look for feedback from our project pilots, our pilot projects, additional subject matter experts, and any other stakeholders. And then we'll use all of that feedback to review what worked and didn't work and make updates. From there, the last step will be to release and finalize the TRUE for Construction Projects framework. Now, I'm not going to take too much time on the nitty-gritty of the pilot guidance. We have an extended webinar and a resources platform designed for that purpose. But let's take a super quick cursory look at how things are different. The first biggest difference lies in what is required to be eligible to be certified as a TRUE for Construction project. We have a full description of what's needed and how to define a project in the guidance, but here's a quick overview of some of the key elements needed for eligibility. Particularly of note is that the full duration of the construction project must be included in the project scope, and that a project should have a certificate of occupancy or another identifier of completion, which should have been received within 6 months of the submission of the project's application. The other two are pretty standard for TRUE, just adapted to cater more specifically to construction. We have also adjusted some of the point totals necessary to achieve each level of certification, as we've narrowed down the field of credits to just those that are applicable to construction. We want to make sure that we're not making it harder to achieve each level. As such, there are 71 total credits available in this adaptation, with 10 credits identified as not applicable to construction and 18 credits modified from their original text. Finally, here's a super quick overview of what the guidance looks like, just to give you a sneak peek. The pilot guidance is made up of 3 distinct parts, first of which is the overview. This section is made up of 3 chunks: a quick statement on purpose, an overview of how to establish the scope of the project, and a description of any modifications that have been made to the certification process. Second, we have the credit modifications and updated guidance. This includes both the credit modifications themselves, so credits will either be marked as applicable, not applicable, or modified, as well as text outlining how any modified credits have been changed. The expectation while using this adaptation is that it will be referenced in conjunction with the existing true rating system for a full picture on how to meet each credit. So this guidance is designed with that in mind. Finally, on our third tab for this guidance, we've created a scorecard tool to support project teams in determining how many credits their project may be able to achieve within the construction pilot. Now, I know I kind of raced through that, so if you're interested in learning more, like I mentioned earlier, we have a few different resources put together for you. So let's take a quick second to talk about how you can get involved. We have 3 primary places you can look to learn more. First is our pilot resources platform, which contains any resources to support the pilot, the recording of the webinar, as well as updates and guidance on the process. This will be the best place to see how things develop and answers to frequently asked questions as they arise. So we encourage anyone interested in the pilot to check back to this page frequently to see developments as they're made. Our second resource is our webinar detailing the pilot more comprehensively. This included a Q&A portion as well as some really fantastic questions. So please check that out on our YouTube page or through our pilot resources platform if you're interested. Finally, you can read our articles on our webpage, which provide a little more detail and an overview on the development of the process over time. And with that, let me pass you over to our next speaker, Denise. Thank you so much for your time and your attention.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us. We will be presenting True, actually using a real case study, the Genesis Marina, that Webcore is the general contractor. And my part, I will be talking a lot about the difference between True and Lead, since I've been working for Lead for over 20 years. Have a lot of experience with Lead. I am also part of the Material and Resource Technical Advisory Group, the MRTAG, and also recently I joined the True Advisory Committee. So been trying to be a resource for both of the technical advisory groups for USGBC. Next slide, please. So as Holly mentioned, construction waste, that's all of us know, it has a lot of impact in our environment and also in the GHG emissions. Just this is an example here of what exactly 6 million tons of C&D looks like in terms of cement. Since we all work with construction, I just want to give you guys a little bit more understanding what that represents. It's like 18 million cement truckloads. Next slide, please. So as Celeste mentioned, True, it's really like a understanding about how to reduce waste in the first place. That's something Lead not necessarily touch base or like focused a lot. We when we talk about Lead and Lead projects, we look more about recycling and diversion methods. And True, it's looking really like the upstream analysis, how to redesign, reduce, return, reuse, repair, and remanufacture materials. And that's something we really need to think about in general when it comes to construction and demolition as well. Next slide. So True is part of the USGBC umbrella of certifications. There's a lot of synergies between True, Lead, GRESB, and other certifications. So I just want to show this really quick. Next slide, please. I put this slide together because a lot of people come to me and they ask, I have a project, it's a Lead project, and we achieve 90% or a little more than 90% diversion. Is my project zero waste certified? Can be zero waste certified? And the answer is not necessarily, even though that True does want to focus on the 90% diversion. That's the minimum to be a prerequisite to get to the certification, as well as other minimum program requirements. True, it's really like a deep dive when it comes to the material and resource credits for LEED. It considers the triple bottom line. So cost savings, it's something very important in the process that we are tracking this. We're looking at this. Kavita will bring some numbers. We work with Kavita and Miranda to quantify some savings for Genesis Marina, and I believe Kavita is going to share some numbers with us. So very impressive results. So yeah, it's something that LEED, we never do that in LEED. We only put normally the weights for construction weights and what kind of diversion method we use, and that's pretty much what LEED requires when it comes to construction waste. Another thing that it's very important, different than LEED, we also focused on the job site operations, the job site trailer operations. We look at reusables and methods of how to reduce waste as well at the job site trailer. So that's something also that's all my 200 plus LEED projects. I never had any experience working with the job site trailer and the people that work in the job site trailer. Another thing too that different than LEED, we also talk about community, how we make an impact around the community that is around the construction waste, the construction site, and also how we can promote circular economy at around the construction site. And we're gonna, Webcore has a really good example of a circular solution, several examples of circular solution for Genesis Marina. Then another thing, it's it's a step-by-step guidelines, different than LEED. We don't have a lot of detail about like how to really implement zero waste and circular strategies and solutions, but True does do that. And then everybody, a lot of people ask me if can I do LEED and True certifications together, and I really recommend that, especially for projects outside of US, which we've been doing a lot projects in India and other countries. That's something that really help us if it's the projects pursuing LEED and the sites to pursue True. It really helps and really complement each other. Next slide. So here's a really good overview of the difference between the material credit for LEED certification. This is mainly the categories for new construction, the BD and C, and the ID and C. And so on the left here, you can see the credits for LEED. They talk about adapt and reuse. That's excellent for True. It will help with your overall diversion rate and really promote what we talk about redesign and reuse. The environmental product declaration, that's really good right now. It's something we need more transparency around materials, building materials and the manufacturing process and so on. The lack that we are missing, I think, between for LEED, it's really like understand the life cycle analysis and really understand that how it impacts the end of the life cycle of the material, or not the end, but like that could be either the end or like something that we're going to be reusing or repairing or something like that. And then of raw materials, that's something interesting too, that they talk about where this material is coming from. There's some recycled content there, so that's good. That helps also with True, but not, again, it's not like a truly deep dive on materials and circular solutions. The material ingredients as well, it's very important for us to understand, because something we need to understand is that when we have harmful product is not just bad for us when we actually occupying the building, but also when it comes to, you know, repairing that, reusing or repairing that product normally, or even recycling. Normally, if the product is really harmful, it's there's nothing we can do. Webcore and I we're working on a project here in the Bay Area where I am right now, and there is a demolition of the project, and the project was built in 1950s, and 90% of the products are contaminated. They're all harmful. They're all hazardous waste, because that's how we used to build in the 1950s. So that's something important that we need to consider as well when it comes to zero waste. And then again, the construction and demolition waste, as I mentioned, it's very much focused on generation and diversion methods. And then you can get points around innovation points and pilot credits as well if you use True. Here to summarize True, you can see a lot of cost savings keywords here, a lot of waste reduction and prevention, extending life cycle of the product, track emissions, something that LEED doesn't do, and I think we should start doing that more often. Talk about social and environmental impact, selecting products that are extracted in a responsibly manner as well as LEED. Do the zero waste analysis, something that's also LEED doesn't have. It's to do a waste audit, have a deep understanding of the material flow and cost savings. Other things that not necessarily LEED touch base, and I really think we should start promoting more. It's the leadership and training, education and awareness, talking about sustainable supply chain, market transformation, and then again, hazardous waste prevention, something similar to LEED, and closed loop, something that we don't see in LEED necessarily. And then there's innovation and pilot credits. So for the people that come to me and ask a lot about what's the main difference between LEED and True, I think this slide, it's a perfect summary of that. And if you have any questions, let me know. Next slide, please. I will let Kavita come from here, but before that, I want to give a shout out to Kavita, because she just became a True advisor. So congratulations! So happy that you became a True advisor, and that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you, Denise. Can you see my video?
Yes, we can still see your video, your slides. Thank you. And you as well.
I'll quickly talk about what is really driving Webcore to pursue higher waste management goals. So we unveiled our CSR goals in 2021, focusing on people, planet, and performance. And waste management is really an integral part of these goals under the planet category. And the intent really here is to optimize our landfill diversion and transparency and our whole approach to waste management. Under the waste management, we have 3 different goals. First is to reduce the total waste that we generate on job sites by 2%. And hopefully we want to see a 20% reduction by 2030. We're also encouraging the use of RCI certified facilities for handling mixed construction and demolition debris. RCI is Recycling Certification Institute, and it's a third-party entity which audits waste facilities. And then the third one is becoming a more confident and more fluent on True Zero Waste program. Our goal was to pilot 1 project by 2020, and I'm happy to say that we actually surpassed that goal. And right now we have 2 projects which are pursuing this certification. So I feel like we are very much on track with this. The other part, the other reason why we want to do this is also it contributes to our ESG score. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance, and it's a standardized way of assessing how a company integrates sustainability principles in their business practices. So we use EcoVadis, and and in year 2021 we got the bronze medal for our based on all of our reporting and disclosures. This EcoVadis system covers 4 areas: labor and human rights, environment, ethics, and sustainable procurement. So our waste reporting and waste diversion numbers really contribute to our ESG scores. We also adopted the environmentally preferred procurement policy as part of our true certification efforts, and that also actually helps us a lot with our ESG numbers. Another place where I see waste reporting aligning with true here is for ESG reporting purposes, waste recovered is considered diverted only if it's reused, recycled, or composted. And I know True also looks at this in a very similar manner. So there's definitely a lot of alignment there. So to get to our waste management goals, Webcore has a lot of different things that we are focusing on, right from having internal tracking and tools, learning the best practices, and then from True, and then applying them to all of our other jobs as well. Education and training, we're trying to educate people on the problems with waste and how we can address that, as well as our policy and culture. We have adopted zero waste policies, we have exhibits, and we've set high expectations for our projects. Internally, before we even started doing True Zero Waste certification, we had set up an internal dashboard that reports the waste on every project. It helps us identify successes and challenges and trends and where we can intervene. And it's also a great education tool for the project team for the whole project team. Anyone who is a Webcore employee can access this and see the diversion rates for their project as well as for other projects. So it's a great education and awareness tool. We also are encouraging a lot of reuse within our job site and of all the furniture appliances that we use in our trailers. So we created an internal materials marketplace. It's sort of like a Craigslist, but for Webcore jobs only. And people post things that they do not want, and other people can claim them. So that helps us reuse and not throw away furniture and appliances when a job closes out. We are also very fortunate to have a Webcore craft group, and Webcore equipment. Webcore equipment, what it does is really purchases, maintains, and repairs company assets. So they're really promoting reuse and salvage. They also rent tools and equipment, hardware to Webcore projects for a discount. And they actually incentivize returning the equipment in good condition. So they're really encouraging responsible use and circular economy. And it really translates into dollars saved to Webcore and to the individual project as well. And we also have our self-performed groups, Webcore carpentry, concrete, and drywall. So since they're in-house, we are able to have a lot of great coordination with them and get the early buy-in that we need. And they also partner with us to reach out to manufacturers, brainstorm innovative ways to reduce the waste generated. They've been working with us to apply some things like bulk ordering, requesting non-recyclable packaging, and using reusable formwork. So both of these groups contribute immensely to these efforts. So when you're thinking of pursuing True certification, in the pre-construction stages or in the design stages, we need to plan for it. We need to plan for the cost. We need to plan how much time we're going to allocate. So we are looking at hauler expenses, consultant fees, certification fees, staff time, and any other costs. So hauler fees, we've kind of looked at two ways. One is typical diversion fees that you have for the LEED 75% diversion requirement. And then to go above and beyond that, to go from the 75% to 90%, what are the costs involved? So we're also working on that. With True, we've seen that greater coordination with our haulers is extremely important. So we've we want to have more photos of hauls. We want to have more monthly site visits from our haulers and meetings with them. And we're really trying to get feedback from them on what is going right and what is going wrong and what we can do better, so that higher coordination is also incorporated in our cost calculations. Then we also are projecting, looking at other costs that might be specific to projects, especially if you have demolition, a lot of excavation, or if you have an existing building which has items like furniture or any other loose things in there. So trying to trying to sort of inventory them and trying to encourage reuse by reaching out to other entities, local charities, etc. So all of those also require time and effort on behalf of the project team. And so that is also something that we need to consider. So now you spend on these efforts, but you also see a lot of savings. For one of the projects that we're currently working on, my colleague will be giving you like an in-depth case study later in the presentation. But we looked at, for that project, which is called Genesis Marina, we looked at the cost savings from 2021, and we had about $100,000 in cost savings. Most of that came from reuse because 90% of the furniture on the trailers was reused. So we actually saved a lot on not buying new furniture and instead taking furniture from another job that was getting closed out. So a lot of, so reuse is like a very high, kind of gives you very high savings. And then for this year, we looked at January to April. This year's costs only captures the recycling costs and the avoided landfill costs, and the savings from that stands at around 30 grand. So at the end of this year, we'll really get a good picture on what kind of cost savings we're looking at. In addition to cost, carbon is equally important, and we also have measured our embodied carbon savings from higher diversions. We looked at our Genesis Marina project from January 2021 to May 2022. So that's about a year and a half. And we saw significant carbon emissions avoided from having higher waste diversion. The number, which is 556 metric ton CO2 emissions equivalent, actually translates into 118 passenger vehicles and 62,000 gallons of gasoline. So that's a huge number. And I think this information is really super critical and can also contribute to a project's scope 3 emissions and lowering the scope 3 emissions. So when you're planning for the certification, what are the things that we are thinking of? So first off, we need to, the decision to pursue True should be taken in advance so that you can incorporate the requirements in your exhibits, in your specification and buyout documentation. Early in the design process, there's also a lot of opportunity to coordinate with the architect to find innovative ways to design out waste and partner with manufacturers to consider packaging, take back. So getting in ahead and getting in early really will help with the intent and with the numbers. We've also added zero waste requirements in our vendor buyout questionnaire and even in our post-bid interviews. So one of the reasons that we're doing that is this program is so new. Most people are not familiar with it. So having these questions and talking points at different intervals ensures that our vendors are constantly educated, and if they have any questions or any concerns, all of those can be addressed on an ongoing basis. So that's a part of our really wider effort to educate our subcontractors and our trade partners on this. Logistics discussion is very important, since you would need a lot of different bins for source separation, and especially important if you have a site with space constraints. If you have a tight site, then all these discussions should be like done ahead of time. True credits look at upstream, architect and manufacturer, and downstream at end markets and next use. So really kind of making sure our haulers and our vendors know of these expectations is crucial. Existing building demolition a lot of times generates a huge volume of waste generated, and I have seen demolition projects which regularly achieve like a very high diversion rate, sometimes even 90–95%. So making sure that our demolition scope aligns with the true requirements, and coordinating with the demolition hauler is crucial. And then what we've also found is the type of waste generated really changes from demolition to construction, to if you're doing mechanical, to if you're doing electrical or fire protection. So taking each of these phases into consideration and adjusting the bin type, size, and number accordingly is very important. It's an ongoing process to really adjust to what is being done on site, so that you get higher diversion and maximize your diversion. I will now turn it over to Miranda Nowlen, who is a project engineer at the Genesis Marina project, to talk about this case study. Miranda.
Awesome, thanks, Kavita. Nice to meet you all virtually. This is a case study on the Genesis Marina project, which is located in the city of Brisbane, California. For those of you who don't know where that is, we're very close to SFO Airport, about 10 minutes away. Very commonly confused with South San Francisco as a whole, but it is its own entity in Brisbane. This project consists of buildings that sit on top of a 2-story concrete podium, as you'll see in the photo to the right. And we can go ahead and talk about what that looks like for this commercial office and lab space. Next slide, please. This project, we had to kind of evaluate as a whole and see if it would be a good fit for True and for Webcore, to see if we wanted to take this on for this project. And given that it was a former landfill, we thought it would be a great fit and a great story of this life cycle for this plot itself. We broke ground in October of 2020, and we did buyout completion in December of 2020. And we determined to ultimately adopt True Pursuit in April of 2021. So we were kind of already hit the ground running. We had our contracts laid out, but we figured it would be a good valiant effort to go ahead and give it a try. So we're super excited about that. Upon completion of True adoption, we received True pre-certification in September of 2021. And we anticipate project completion overall with hopefully over 90% diversion rate in the summer of 2023. Our current diversion rate as of today is 94%, so we are currently on track. Next slide, please. So then we had to evaluate the project's logistics and how that looked on a month-to-month basis. Every square inch of this project, unfortunately, gets developed. So we didn't have a whole lot of laydown space, although it is an 8-acre site. It seems like you do, but once you start putting in huge 40-yard bins, project site space can become very limited very quickly. But we did plan, regardless, that at all of the construction hoists, we would have a minimum of 3 40-yard debris bins diverted in these locations. So if you can see in the photo to the right, we did build these platforms to where personnel can take their buggy out there with its source separated waste and place in each appropriate bin. So we tried to make it as easy and efficient as possible for everyone. We did notice that if bins are farther away from where they're currently working, or there is not a source separated bin close by, they will just default and place their material in the closest bin, which can be a little disheartening, but it just takes some education and some maneuverability of re-educating everyone where the appropriate bins are and having that discussion with them. So no matter what phase we were in the project, we determined that we would need a minimum of 5 source separated bins, which included cardboard, household recyclables such as aluminum or plastic, and compost, and then wood and unfortunately landfill. But that is the name of the game in the construction industry, that we have all of those bins on site. Next slide, please. So then once we looked at the bin locations, it was a matter of evaluating which bin was suited for the project phase. So once we were in interiors, we could switch over to buggies, but prior to that, we had to utilize construction hoppers, as you'll see in the bottom. We had to use the large debris bins that could only be lifted by hand or loaded by hand with a forklift. You couldn't really hand load them, which was difficult logistically, but ultimately that's all you needed when you had large debris. We did have these small source separating stations with the brute bins that you'll see in the photos on the right. We set those up next to pedestrian walkways, entrances and exits into the building, so that way you could easily throw away your lunch trash or your water bottles or anything like that prior to getting on site to help eliminate debris throughout the site and on an active deck. Super stacks were very common that we used on an active deck. They were used to fly material up and then ultimately used as a debris bin for getting material down. Unfortunately with that, we were unable to label them or separate them. So that was, unless they were specifically handled by a subcontractor, if individuals started throwing their municipal waste in there, it could contaminate a load. So we just have to be conscientious of that and maybe start labeling those. So signage became key, having appropriate labels so people would not throw drywall in a cardboard bin or throwing plastic in a metal bin. It became very crucial to have appropriate signage. So we implemented things such as the flags, as you'll see in the bottom picture. We did vinyl banners and we laminated signs. So having signs that were clear and concise and had photos really helped those in the field who were just quickly trying to throw away their material and move on to the next task. Next slide, please. So then once we started collecting all that waste, we had to evaluate what it looks like. So we had a monthly meeting with our waste hauler, Premier Recycle. They were an excellent partner with us. They provide us a monthly report of all of the bins that we had off-hauled, what was contained in them, and then they provided us photos of what was in there. And as you can see on the right photo, cardboard was a great example of a clean cardboard bin. That's what it should look like. And we were very pleased to see that sort of diversion where people are following the signs appropriately. And then as you'll see in the loads below, there was some room for improvement. And then it also identifies materials that unfortunately cannot be recycled, such as styrofoam and plastic bags, etc. So there's always room for improvement, but it's also good to review your waste load so you can see what materials could be eliminated going forward, such as plastic bins, as we found out, or plastic buckets per se, and PVC. We started seeing a lot of those materials getting thrown away that appeared to be reusable or good. And after discussions with Premier, found out that they could not be. So it's kind of evaluating those materials that you think are, to the common folk, maybe a recyclable material, and then you quickly find out after you have those discussions with those recycle haulers that that is not the case. And so therefore it's evaluating what best way to eliminate that waste going forward. Next slide, please. So then after we've done all of that, we found out we quickly needed to influence change and implement some form of education and habit changing in the field. So each employee that steps on site receives site safety orientation. And when they receive that orientation, we do have a few slides where we talk about TRUE and their pursuit on this project. We identify the different bins that we have on this project and their location. So it should be easy for those who first come on site and know our passion about waste and what we're trying to do on this project. So we do have signs located throughout the site and on our trailer that identify how much waste we've collected thus far and how much has been diverted. And we do have a project portal that's driven by Smartsheet that everyone can have access to once they scan their QR code. It's the same code that they use every day in order to have their COVID check-in. And it also has the zero waste policies and programs in there that show our latest and greatest updates for True. So this kind of keeps everyone up to date. They're able to input all their information and they're able to receive any information that we have sent out for them. Next slide, please. So it's not just a field effort, it's also an office effort. As we quickly found out when we first started looking into True, True was originally designed for operations in office. And we decided, or rather the True advisors decided that they wanted to push the limit and extend it on to construction projects. So it only made sense that we also had the True Pursuit in our project as well. So as Kavita mentioned, we do have 90% of our office that's furnished with used furniture from the past projects. So that could include printers, cubicles, chairs, even paper we reused from previous projects, and our coffee makers. So there's a whole list of things that you dive on. We were very fortunate when we mobilized this project that a lot of other projects were coming to an end. So we were able to capitalize on that reused furniture and save our money and count towards our True diversion rate. And we hope to do the same once we demobilize to find a home for this furniture to go to the next project. We also partake in TerraCycle programs for all of the snack wrappers, coffee pods, creamer pods, anything of the like. We ship out to TerraCycle and they recycle responsibly. We switched to bulk packaging for snacks. Once we got the A-OK after COVID regulations were lifted, we switched over to that, which is a great package reducer. And then we also have all of our paper contents in the office are made of recycled content. So our paper towels, toilet paper, seat covers, all of the above are made from recycled content. In the bathroom, we have hand dryers to try and eliminate that paper use. And we also have source separated bins in the next to our coffee station for your stir sticks and any sort of snack wrappers or coffee packaging. So we try our best to eliminate any sort of waste that's in the site as well and try to exemplify like the True efforts as a whole throughout our project. Next slide, please. Last but not least, I think we found out that with our review of our waste hauls, there are quite a few materials that unfortunately cannot be recycled and end up in landfill no matter what we do. Some of those materials being pallet wrap. So we've talked with many vendors about switching from pallet wrap to metal banding, and depending on the material, this is a possibility. Some things, if it's kind of loose wrap, that's pallet wrap is the only way to keep it together. But it can be recycled if you wash and clean it and keep it separate. So that's one thing to take into consideration. Straw wattles, if they are wrapped in the plastic netting, they cannot be recycled, but if you switch them over to burlap or the bio wattles, then they can be, and they can be composted and recycled appropriately. Same with styrofoam. Unfortunately, I think everyone knows that that item ends up at the landfill. Can be swapped out for cardboard, a discussion that you could have with your vendors and the suppliers to see if they are willing to make that switch with their production line. Plastic buckets. So as we discovered during our underground waterproofing efforts in that photo on the right, we were seeing a lot of plastic buckets go into waste. And unfortunately, based on the material that was in them, we could not reuse them. So we quickly found out that we could switch over to bulk use of this material, as you'll see in the photo in the back, which comes in a cardboard box and kind of like a big plastic bladder that you can use instead of having multiple buckets that kind of serves the same purpose. So that eliminates waste. The only caution with that is it's in a cardboard box, and if it rains, your packaging becomes compromised, but you can easily mitigate that with a tarp or something. And then of course, the age-old plastic water bottles. They can be recycled as long as people are placing them in the appropriate bin, but we would just overall like to eliminate them from our project sites. We would like to switch to canned water or reusable water bottles with filling drinking stations. So those are some things we've come across, and I'm sure there's many more, but I didn't want to bore you with the whole list. The other items that we've noticed that we'd like to consider and just food for thought for other people as they're considering true for their projects is a PVC. That material cannot be recycled, so can we replace it with something else? Caulking tubes, same situation. And then maybe your like odds and ends that you use around a construction site as a GC and a subcontractor, such as your snow fence, your flagging and accessories. Often these are like maybe one-time use, set up for a certain delineation, and then you take them down, and because they were cut to a certain size, they may not be able to be reused. So maybe thinking of alternative methods for those as well. Next slide, please. And then this is a pilot program we tried. Webcore as a whole has tried this quite a few times on their projects. There's unfortunately a lot of pushback when it comes to trying to have reusable water bottles in drinking stations throughout a project. There's a lot of OSHA guidelines that you have to abide by, which can easily be mitigated if you have an individual dedicated to that item. I think the biggest item for this pilot program that we tried was probably getting people to change their habits and their methods in the way they work on a construction site and the logistics of getting water to and from their current place of work. So this is a pilot program we've tried out in the beginning when we were doing earthwork and groundwork, and now that we're in the interiors, we hope to try it again and implement it as well. And if this is unsuccessful, we can say we tried, and we definitely are getting positive feedback about the canned water. So if we can't eliminate single-use water applications, we can hopefully eliminate the plastic water bottles. We hope to hear more great ideas from all of you as we continue to pursue True in the construction industry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. That was really fantastic to get that deep dive on the Webcore Genesis Marina project and everything else that you all are doing. Kavita, if you don't mind stopping your screen share, that would be great. So yeah, you all did fantastic. There's lots of enthusiasm in the chat. We also have so many questions, but I know that we are about right at time because there was just so much good information to share. So I can stay on for a couple more minutes to go through some of the questions, if that's okay with some of the panelists. If any of you need to hop off, we totally understand. We'll also get through some of the questions, and then if it's getting too much, then we'll follow up with an email afterwards to get through some of that. Okay, so yeah.
So I actually have just one addition. We have been selected by the Greenville Chores Committee to have a Genesis Marina chore at the upcoming Greenville. So yeah, everyone, please, if you're interested and if you're coming to Greenville, please join our chore.
That is amazing, and congratulations. That is very exciting. We are at the USGBC are very excited for Greenville this year in San Francisco, and that's going to be a huge highlight for sure. So thank you for making that announcement. That's great. Okay, so real quick, maybe just a clarification question. Miranda, can you clarify what you meant with the pallet wrap being recyclable or not recyclable? There was some confusion on understanding that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is recyclable according to our municipal hauler if it is clean.
Okay.
So it can't have any sort of dirt or writing, any sort of spray paint or anything on that, like that. If it's been cleaned and it's been separated on its own, then it can be recycled according to them. We did have a challenge with that. A lot of the times it comes dirty or tethered or has spray paint on it. And so it can be recycled if it's clean and kept separate and it is not contaminated.
Perfect.
But it's recycled by a municipal hauler, okay, not your typical C&D hauler. Mm-hmm.
Great. And can you also clarify if the operations and office practices were recorded as part of your calculations for the Webcore project? Denise is saying no, those were separate. Yeah. Okay, great. I think we can.
Yeah, I responded that. So it's only so you have, for the people that are familiar with lead language, it's like the project boundary. So that's what we consider everything that comes out or comes in to the project boundary, which is the construction site. That's the calculations that we use. Webcore has an office nearby. That's not, their operations not considering the project boundary. But I did mention that the job site trailer, because it's inside of the project boundary, that the operations and the waste and the materials that the job site consumes and buy and dispose, that's also considered in the calculations.
Perfect, thank you. Can someone also clarify which platform Webcore uses for internal waste tracking and the materials marketplace?
We use Power BI right now, and we're trying to transition to Smart Sheets. So hopefully, yeah, thanks.
Great, good to know. One person that works in this industry noticed that one remaining issue is the time required to separate all these materials and how that is a significant additional investment on a construction site, especially for demolition work. So can your team speak a little bit about some of the added time and whether or not that was calculated as part of this exercise, or if you didn't account for that?
I'll let Kavita speak to the demolition for Contra Costa County.
Yeah, so we're right now going in the demolition stages of the other project. Genesis Marina did not have that, so kind of we don't really have the numbers from that project. The project that's going demolition right now, it's in those phases. So we did account for some kind of time for Webcore staff to monitor and help our subcontractors. But I think once we are at the end, we would really know, we will kind of emerge with the kind of reconciled picture and how much we need to factor for future projects.
Yeah, I just want to jump here. I think it's a very important concern. So two things when it comes to demolition and salvaging materials and separating the materials to be reused, especially, is number one, when the building was built. So this project that Kavita was mentioning, the building was very old. And again, most of the materials were considered contaminated because it had asbestos or lead or something else. So there was a lot of hazardous waste. So that's one thing. The second thing, of the materials that left that were not considered contaminated, we work with the design team, which we're also going to have a panel at the Greenbelt to talk about that. We work with the design team and understand what kind of materials we could save that makes sense for the project, the design of the new building, and it could be saved. So you need to understand, pick your battle, understand which material makes sense for you to be reused and salvage from your demolition. And that has some cost, but also when it comes to reuse, you also need to consider that you're saving the material, like the cost of the new material you're buying. So don't think only like the cost, because I'm salvaging, let's say in the case of the project, we salvage a lot of granite and marble. So we're saving, we pay probably labor to salvage that material, but now we're saving instead of buying new marble and new granite for that project. So just keep that in mind.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, still more questions coming in. We'll try and get through some of these quickly. I'm just going to answer one or two, which there was a question on whether or not we've had any residential construction projects go through this process yet. And I believe that answer is no, unless Holly has any indicator of any inquiries on that. Yeah, so that would be a new opportunity, which would be very exciting. And another question came up about some of the regional limitations that are associated with construction activities. Certain parts of the country, it might be a little bit more doable to potentially do this than others. And what I would just say to that is one of the things that we have tried to do with the TRUE program in general, not even specific to construction, but just overall, is to really focus on those internal practices and processes that really affect like the operations, whether or not that's construction or a existing facility, so that we can really turn the focus of the zero waste goals to more things that can be done on that internal basis and are less reliant on some of that external infrastructure that may or may not exist for waste and recycling. So absolutely understand that that's not necessarily always going to be the case. And certainly there is a certain reliance that we all need to have on our local recycling and waste haulers, but we have tried to focus the program so that the first thing that we're doing is looking internally before externally. That said, I know a lot of the work that we've focused on today has been California based, which is obviously really excelling in this regard. So certainly understand that there might be challenges elsewhere, but I do think that that is a support for this type of project. Is there anything else that anyone wants to add for that?
I would like to add, I would like to add, because I have an international experience in several cases, but I started my career doing lead projects in Brazil, which 20 years ago, there was absolutely no infrastructure for recycling and repairing and reuse construction waste. And that was my main job with construction waste. And actually was very interesting because lead, and now I believe true, that's when I mentioned about the market transformation. Those certifications really come to a project, but actually has a bigger impact that we don't see necessarily, or we don't capture, or we don't talk about it. So for lead projects in Brazil 20 years ago, we were able to connect to like small, companies and say, hey, I have this marble or this window. Would you take that? And they were so small, they were like, yeah, for sure, we have a market for that, and so on. So really, don't feel discouraged. Actually use this as an opportunity to change the status quo. Use this opportunity to make a difference in your community, to promote more entrepreneurs, to promote startups, to promote businesses that right now they operate as like a mom and pop shop, and to be bigger, because they need you. They need us to go and contact them.
And it's a big part of creating the circular economy infrastructure. The more that we see this type of work happening, the more that we're pushing for this type of work, the more that circular economy is going to grow. So yeah, that's super helpful. Okay, just looking through, let's see here. Maybe just one more question, which is how prefab and modular and ADUs fall into the program. Holly, maybe do you want to take a crack at that one?
Oh gosh, that is one that I don't think we've seen a lot quite yet. So I think that that's something, a lot of the way that this project is working is that as things are kind of coming in, if they're not fitting well, so if you're looking through the updated guidance and you're saying, ooh, I don't really know if this has a good fit, or I don't really know how we can, if this should be included, is it if it's hazardous, which I know isn't true for prefab, but if you're kind of looking and you're saying this feels like it's not making sense, that is what the pilot is for. It's for us to help to kind of learn a little bit better how we can address those specifics. And so reach out to us. We have on that resources page that we shared, there is a kind of a FAQ section where we answer frequently asked questions about things like this. There is also a feedback form. So if you have feedback that you're thinking, hey, this really isn't being addressed, or hey, I really think this should be addressed, or anything along those lines, take the time to fill out the feedback form. Let us know. This is certainly in pilot, so we want to hear where those things are working, where things are feeling like they're not fitting, and sit down and talk with you about kind of what makes sense there. So a little bit of an open-ended space, but happy to talk more through that outlet.
And I'll just add that just because something maybe hasn't come up before, there's still need to demonstrate that leadership as being one of the first, right? And so we very much welcome those types of inquiries, because we think it's a good opportunity for us to grow as a program and to find out how that can support the work that all of you are doing as well. Okay, well, I know it's 11 after, and I think we've gotten through most of the questions. I think there's maybe a couple that we're going to follow up with privately for some of the folks that have reached out. Is there anything else that any of you want to say to the group, or that we didn't cover that you wanted to address before we hop off and let everyone get on with their day?
Yeah, Celeste, I saw a question actually coming up on deconstruction versus demolition, and that is, I think, super important. And I just want to take a quick minute and say that we are, for any project, not just True, I think deconstruction is really the route forward that we should be thinking of, but that's full deconstruction is still like very new and not easily accepted, or the timelines don't really work out, or the cost stuff doesn't work out. So as of now, but that's really where we want to push with, and True definitely supports that for full deconstruction. As of now, I think people are more receptive to partial deconstruction, taking out the stuff that has more value or more recyclability. But yeah, definitely deconstruction is preferred over demolition, and that's what we all should be moving towards.
Yes, absolutely. Could not agree more. All right, well, with that, I just want to thank everyone for their time. Thank you especially to all of our fantastic panelists. It's been so wonderful to see all of you. We all work together, and so it's just been great to have this opportunity to come together and collaborate. Check out our upcoming events, check out the True Advisor, stay in touch with everything happening at Webcore and all about waste. And we can't wait to see you all soon. Have a great rest of your August. Take care.